Welcome to Leadership Beyond Burnout. This is the show that's here to help you and your teams heal, lead, and succeed. I'm Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson, your guide on this journey to resilience, growth, and transformation. Together, we're going to dive into stories, strategies, and insights that not only inspire, but empower real change in a way that you work and connect. Now, whether it's fresh ideas for resilience or practical steps to create balance and joy, each episode is packed with tools to elevate your workplace and life. To all of our new listeners, welcome. And to our fired up friends that show up week after week, we're thrilled to have you back. I want to ensure that you engage with us during the show and send in any questions. Don't hesitate to connect with us anytime. You can go to drkimberlywilson.com. And let's share our sponsors. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Leadership and Resilience Consultants. They are dedicated to building healthy workplace cultures and equipping women with the tools to overcome and prevent burnout. Let's share today's guest. Our guest today is Corina Walsh. She's a storyteller, motivator, and high-impact presenter. She's on a mission to ensure all employees love going to work each day. She accomplishes this by leveraging the transformative power of leadership coaching. Corina's programs equip managers and business owners with the fundamental skills and knowledge they need to reach higher levels of performance without burning out, creating a ripple effect of positive change within organizations. Corina's work and innovative approaches in leadership development have been recognized through acknowledgements such as Top 50 Leader, Under 40 in the Atlantic, Canada, and YWCA Distinction Award in Business. As an international speaker on leadership and employee engagement, Corina has been included in speaker rosters with dynamic experts such as Brené Brown and Adam Grant. Corina is the author of the Engaged Employee Blueprint and host of the podcast, The People and Culture Success Show. Corina's second book, Modern Manager, will be available in January of 2025. And without further ado, let's bring on Corina.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. I missed some of that stuff in your bio when I read it the first time. So I'm really honored to have you here. I'd love for you to share with our guests exactly what you do to bring healing to the world.
Absolutely. What I do to bring healing to the world is that I help managers and executives and business owners get the skills and tools they need to lead their teams. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but the average manager is in their role for almost 10 years before they finally get some leadership development. That's a long time in your role, trying to figure things out, trying to figure out how to lead, how to have feedback conversations, how to delegate. And really, you're just winging it. And so many people are promoted to that first management role because they were good performers on the team, and they don't get the support and the skills that they need. And so for years now, I've been doing this work for 10 years, more than 10 years, and I hear the same story over and over again about what happens to someone when they get promoted for the first time and some of the challenges they run into, and that will wear you down after a while. It will cause burnout. It will cause stress. And I think the story that I hear the most that really hurts me is that I hear people say, I'm not sure I'm cut out for this management role. I think I'm going to go back to being an individual performer.
Right.
And I say, before you do that, let's see if you have the skills and tools that you need to do this job, because I bet you don't.
Mm-hmm. Right. You can't perform the job without the right equipment.
That's
and
right.
I'd love for you to share as well if you've seen a lot of mourning being an individual performer and what that's like, how that shows up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that transition going from individual performer to manager, it comes with so much. And there's I hear a lot of stories about managers who don't understand, why their team members are treating them a certain way. Like, I was one of them. Why are they treating me this way? Oh, but you're not one of them anymore. you're le-
Right.
you're leading the team. And yes, they do definitely kind of have that period of perhaps regret, wondering if they should have taken on this role. They think about what it was like to be part of the team, be one of the peers, and now they have to lead that team. There's a tremendous amount of emotion that comes along with that, and second guessing and wondering if this was the right decision for them to make, to take that management role.
Right. It was the pay jump worth it.
And in some cases, there's very little pay jump, but a tremendous amount of extra responsibility.
Yes. And I've even been seeing some of the trends. I'm curious if you've seen this in Canada, where there is the promotion without the pay.
Oh, yes, definitely. We've definitely seen that, right, in every workplace. It's just a change in job title and a change in responsibility, which apparently is supposed to be enough. It's supposed to be, to put on your LinkedIn profile, to be some sort of prestige or gift that you have this new title without the extra compensation for all of the responsibility that you have. And that's a story I've heard from many managers, especially in government roles, because in government roles, of course, it's so you can see the tiered pay scale. And they
Yes.
even say to me, like, at the top of my pay scale as an individual performer, I would actually be making more money than I am at the bottom of the scale as a manager. So that happens quite a bit.
Yes. I've seen a lot of talent get wasted because of that. It's like, why would I want to take a pay cut and become a manager?
Exactly.
Like I make way more than my manager could ever make. And I'm like, wow, you're right.
Exactly. Especially if it's a commission based role, like a sales role or something like that, where there's potential for bonuses or commissions. And now you switch over to a salary as a manager where there might not be any bonuses or commissions. That's definitely the case for sure.
And I'd love to talk about the whether or not there's an experience of resentment from managers when they know that their team is being compensated a lot more than they are.
I've definitely heard that from some of my clients, a little bit of resentment. I haven't heard it a lot because I just think that the managers I'm working with are so bogged down just trying to get through some of the challenges that they're facing that they might not even be thinking about the money that their team members are making. But it has definitely come up a couple of times, as I mentioned, more so when they start comparing those pay scales where they're like, at the top of your pay scale as an individual performer, you could be making more at the bottom scale. But I think they just know that they have to wait it out until they've jumped a few levels in their management role to realize that, they'll be making more money. It does come up, but not nearly as much as the overwhelm with the extra responsibility that they have.
Right. And what do you attribute to the fact of them needing to wait 10 years before they actually get the professional development? Is it a lack of priority on that development training or funding?
Yes, those would be two of the top ones, right? Unfortunately, a lot of companies still see leadership development as a nice to have. They don't see it as an essential. And a huge trend, I don't even know if it qualifies as a trend anymore, just the reality is that a lot of organizations are waiting until they see a manager make a lot of mistakes or they see that a manager is drowning before they finally reach out to someone like me. And I'm happy to help. I will always help if it's a fit. But unfortunately, then you end up spending all your time trying to help this manager just like survive, just get their head above water, when really leadership coaching is meant to be a proactive endeavor where you learn how to thrive, not just survive.
Right.
So it's definitely not quite a priority all the time. And then there's budgetary constraints for sure. And then I think there's also the fact that there's so many options out there for leadership development. It's trying to weed through the providers like myself and find out who is the best organization to provide this type of leadership development, what type of leadership development would be effective. And companies do invest quite a bit in leadership development. I wouldn't have a business if they weren't investing in it. But unfortunately, sometimes that leadership development is not appropriate for that level of management. as well. So somebody has been to leadership development, but they did not get the how to manage like I teach in my initial foundations program.
Hmm. And okay, cut it right here, Miriam, because I forgot my question. It was right there in the top of my brain, and then all of a sudden it exited me.
That's
Okay.
all right.
All right, here we go. Okay. So one of the things that I do love about the military complex of structure is that leadership training is embedded in it starts at the very beginning where you learn, at least for the Marine Corps, where you learn your leadership traits and leadership principles and how you embody that. And then before a lot of the promotions, when you go from one level to the next, there's this leadership training that's 6 weeks to a couple of months, and each level you get that training. And it would be so inspiring to see the civilian structure do that as well.
Exactly. And there, to be fair, there are some organizations that do that. There are organizations who have hired me to develop their internal programs, and they've done that very well. And with the guidance of someone like me, I can tell them, here's the type of training that your frontline leaders need. Here's leadership development for middle managers, and here's the competencies that executives need. And so therefore, this is the type of development they need. But yes, the military is well known for having that structure and providing the learning and development that goes along with it. And there's definitely a lot we could learn from that approach from the military.
Right. Um, if you could have just one wish that every manager, newly promoted manager got, like if a company was just operating on bare bones, what would be the one thing you'd say, at least give them this tool?
Right. I mean, that's such a hard question to answer because there's so many things I want new managers to have. I would say at the very least, there are free, if you really don't have the funds, and to be fair, some organizations don't, especially, I'm thinking about those small businesses and everything. I would say there are a lot of free resources online that could help. I give a lot of things away on my website. There's a lot of free resources that will tell you what type of skills you need at each level of leadership. I have free videos, free podcast episodes. And in fact, I have a series of podcast episodes on the top 3 challenges of new managers. So I would say have those resources ready and make it part of the initial onboarding to your first leadership role, to at least read the free resources that you can get. There's fantastic books, leadership books. I've written a couple that you can get as well. And I mean, so there's definitely plenty of free to low cost ways to start getting that development. Mentorship, if there's a good, that's typically free. If there's a good leader in your organization, an effective leader, or maybe in your industry, might somebody mentor you? If your organization doesn't have the funds. I know you said one thing, and I've already given you 2, and I'll give you one more, and I'll say, look to your community development programs, or your economic development organizations, and your government, because there's funding available sometimes.
So you would have this one package.
Let's call it one package, sure.
We'll just wrap it all together. That way you can have everything you want.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. And what I always find is interesting when you talk about that good leader in there is sometimes they get overtasked because they are good and they get pulled on, and it's very difficult, I would assume, to have those boundaries. Have you seen that a lot?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, you know the old phrase, like, if you want something done, give it to a busy woman. But yes, the leader who's standing out in an organization, that person probably already has enough requests. And I think that's at the point when that person needs to know how to set boundaries, for sure. But, there are kind of passive ways, I think, to mentor someone. Like, let that new manager or that future manager, your emerging leader, just shadow. Just sit in on the meeting and shadow and watch how that amazing leader is running the meeting, or how they're going to handle a particular situation. recording. I mean, look at you and I recording this session tonight. You can record anything nowadays, and I encourage organizations to do that whenever there's a training session, whenever you're having potentially a coaching or mentoring session, turn it into some type of learning asset and start creating that learning library in your organization. And then you don't have to repeat yourself, and mentors who are already in demand don't have to repeat themselves because they may have that learning already documented in your organization.
Right. And if you begin to cultivate your own library, you know that the leadership skills and traits that they're learning, they are aligned with your organizational values and your mission. And you don't have, where in the heck did they learn that? That does not work here, because there are some things that absolutely do not work in some organizations.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because, and that ties back to finding the right mentor as well. You might set an emerging leader up to be mentored by someone, but let's make sure that person has the right leadership skills too, right? Because what they learned 10 or 20 years ago might not be working today. So you have to think about that. But yes, exactly. When you start building your own internal leadership resources, you have that option to filter what will work in our organization and what might not work. So that's a really great point that you're bringing up there.
Right. And what's most valuable to the organization. And you can begin to create a little class of leaders to then begin to train and mentor other leaders and just have that perpetual learning.
Exactly. And that's where developing like a competency-based leadership program is really important as well. Like looking at your specific industry, whether it's knowledge-based industries or it's the skilled trades or whatever, or healthcare, and thinking like what type of leadership competencies, because there are so many.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't learn them all. You can't fit them all in one leadership development program. But, being critical and thinking like what leadership competencies work in our industry and with our culture.
Right.
And then find the leadership program or do a customized situation that will work for your leaders in your organization. So that you're not throwing good resources into perhaps a leadership program that's not really going to be effective for your organization.
Right. Or even that you capitalize and you have the right position, the right person in the position with the right leadership skill, because
Exactly.
it's like a wonderful little cocktail, and you can get it wrong. Like,
oh, yes.
I would be awful in sales. Could I do it? No, but I would not be happy doing it. I would be forcing that skill.
For
It
sure.
wouldn't come natural.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's another great reason why I think companies today need to have two different streams of leadership. They need to have the option for people leadership, because there are lots of really amazing technical people who deserve to move ahead in their careers,
Right.
and advance, but maybe they don't want to be a people leader. So then you also need like a professional technical stream or business stream, or maybe you don't have people reporting to you, but you still have a clear career path in that organization. So I'm definitely an advocate and encourage organizations to have multiple options for leadership pathways for anyone in the organization as well.
And I love that you brought that up, because I've definitely noticed that with professionals that have come up around the same time that I have seen this trend where we're done peopling.
Yes.
Give us a project, a program, something short term to do. No more peopling.
Fair enough. I'm with you. I have days like that. Where I'm like, no more coaching calls this week. I'm going to do some bookkeeping or something. But I think we all have our moments like that for sure. But yeah, that's exactly why you need to have these different career options in your organization.
Right. Now, what happens if an employee does get an opportunity to be a leader, to be a manager, but they know that it's not what they want? How do they graciously either back out of it or mention something else that they're interested in?
I think that's a great scenario for us to talk about because I think there's a lot of embarrassment probably and maybe even shame if you end up in a role and realize it's not for you, especially a people management role. You accepted it and realized that maybe you're not cut out for it. Maybe it's not the right time in your life or stage in your career for that. And what I would say to anyone is to never be embarrassed about that. I would rather have someone admit that, you know what, I tried it. This is not for me and I'm not going to serve this team well. I think that actually demonstrates leadership. That you can say that you have the courage to say that. And you can graciously say, you know, I'm either going to go back to being an individual performer or I'll take, if the company has another route for your career, that business path or that technical expertise path. But absolutely, I personally would much rather have someone admit that and demonstrate that level of personal leadership and say, this is not for me and I'm not cut out for this. Again, I would always ask someone if they have the tools and skills they need before they decide that it's not for them. But even after that, if it's not for you, there's no shame or blame in walking away from that for sure.
Ideally, I would also add to assess whether your lifestyle can even accommodate that role, because maybe you have a lot of medical things going on with your family or different, you just don't have the capacity to be a manager right now.
Well, I've encountered that as well with a lot of clients. Some of my more corporate clients have admitted that they're struggling to get newer, younger leaders stepping into the leadership pipeline. They're reaching out, in particular women, asking women and others to step into the leadership development stream and to keep that leadership succession going. And they say no. And the reason they're saying no is because they're seeing how demanding it is to be in that role. And that hurts me a little bit too, because I think we can do better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just another sign that the younger generation coming up through the workforce now, they want that work-life balance. It's bless them. It's a non-negotiable for them. So good for them, right? But yes, companies are struggling sometimes to get emerging leaders into that leadership pipeline. And there's ways to handle that. But I'm not surprised at all to hear that companies might be having trouble filling that pipeline as well.
Absolutely. It requires maybe them to shift the way business as usual is done.
Exactly. Yeah. And accommodating, like saying, okay, well, if you're seeing a female executive or any executive in the role and you're like, oh, no, I'm not staying at work till 7 p.m. I'm not logging on after I get home once I've worked all day. It's time to really figure out what's going on there and say, okay, well, maybe our executives and senior managers are not setting the right example. Maybe we have to figure this out. Because otherwise your organization is going to be in trouble down the road when you can't get leaders to fill that role.
Right. And I hate that a lot of times it's seen as a very gendered experience, because sometimes it's that male in the leadership role, but he has now lost all of his family ties. Like,
Yep.
On my second or third divorce, my kids aren't talking to me, and I don't have any friends to speak of, but I'm doing well at work.
It happens. It's still happening, unfortunately, and we hear those stories, and it should be a cautionary tale. But many of us are still very, very driven by our work, very passionate about our work, and we put our all into it, sometimes, unfortunately, at the risk of our family or our health. And we definitely, but again, I can tell you that the younger generation, they definitely don't want that, for sure.
They unsubscribe, opting out. They're not doing that. I didn't sign up for that.
As they should, right? As they should. Yeah.
I was trying to remember the name of the young lady, and it's here in the state, and even the state is escaping me, who passed away at work and was not found for 4 days.
I remember that. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the risk, right? When you're just starting off, and I did it too. When I was just starting off, I didn't have a child yet, probably wasn't married yet, and put in way too many hours trying to make a name for myself. And I mean, You and I think we both see the memes and we see the posts about like, why would you work for an organization that will replace you tomorrow if you leave or if you die, God forbid.
Right.
Why would you work, 50, 60, 70 hours a week for an organization that'll replace you tomorrow? And it's a fair question. So that balance definitely needs to be achieved. And you're the only one who can really self-advocate and make sure you have that balance.
Right.
And that's how we make sure we don't get to that place of burnout.
Well, I think there's a large fear. If I advocate, will I be able to service my basic needs? Do I become expendable? Uh, what is the culture like? Look what happened to Ted, who said no.
Right. Right.
Ted's
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, that punishment is real. And, there are organizations still doing it. And, employees finally got remote work when it took a pandemic. It took a global pandemic for organizations to finally give employees remote work. They've been asking for it for years, decades. And now they're clawing it back. But here's the catch, though. If you're doing that to your employees, if you're not striving to help them find that balance, if you're overworking your high performers, you are really going to struggle to attract talent and
right.
retain your talent. Turnover is very costly at an organization. And employees a good employee is never going to have trouble finding a job. I've always said that. I never back in the day when I was working for someone else, I never had a problem finding a job. And a good employee will never struggle to find a job. It might take them a month, a week, or whatever, a few months, but they're never going to be without a job for very long. And if you want to retain that talent and be able to attract more talent, you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you are going to punish an employee for looking for a better balance, or if you're going to start clawing back remote work. I mean, employees are looking for remote first. So your best talent is going to take those jobs first. So
Yes.
get in the game, play the game if you want to get the talent and retain the talent is what I would say to companies.
Figure out how to make it happen, because even in healthcare, I mean, a lot of very good nurses are now choosing travel nursing because it's so flexible and you get to travel so many places, and the rate of reimbursement is so much higher. It's just like, why do I want to be on shift work and be burnt out and have to deal with all the bureaucracy?
That's a really interesting example that you bring up, because I'm married to a man who works in healthcare, and we are good Gen Xers, right? And we have that Gen X work ethic. And, the graduates that are coming out of nursing school now, if we can just pick on healthcare for a minute, they're choosing casual roles. Some of them might be doing travel nursing as well, because I think you do get paid more as well. But a lot of them are working casual because they know they can get as many shifts as they want and choose to work when they want. So, hey, why not?
Right.
I mean, it's working for them. So organizations are going to have to come up with a better system, better incentives, better structure for scheduling and everything if they have any hope of having a solid workforce.
How much do you think it comes into play that there's I had to do it this way? What was that? Did I say a funny?
I've never said that, ever.
You've never said that.
It comes into play a lot. I mean, there's definitely that generational conflict in a lot of workplaces. And I hear it. I do a lot of talks for maybe CEO groups or executive mastermind groups. And obviously the age range in those groups is going to be 40s, 50s plus, right?
Right.
And, I get this bewildered look from a CEO who's probably in his 50s saying, this generation, what's going on with this generation?
And that's never a wonderful mindset, is it?
No. And I just keep reminding them, like, you can't expect someone who's raised in a different generation with different values and different circumstances to show up in the workplace the same way you did. It doesn't mean they don't have the work ethic. It just means that they are motivated differently. They respond to a different type of communication. It's just a completely different game that they're in, and they're driven in a very different way than, say, perhaps a baby boomer or a Gen X. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them, and you have to adapt your leadership to be responsive to that.
Right. It has to come with some curiosity about what motivates them, and some listening ears, because they'll tell you. Unlike other generations, they will let you know what they need.
Exactly. And isn't that wonderful?
You don't have to guess.
Right? And I mean, I'm the Canadian, so on this call, so I can talk about how passive aggressive we are and how we like to make people guess how we feel. But you don't have to do that with that generation. And how wonderful is that they will tell you. I also like to remind people too that, like, there's people who don't have a great work ethic in every generation. I know old friends, old classmates, old colleagues who were my age, who had a very poor work ethic and were just coasting along. Those people exist in every generation. Mm-hmm. It's just that I think when you get to a certain age and you're looking down on everyone in the workforce, it's easy to think that you always brought your best to work. Oh, but did you in your 20s? So I think it's easy for us to kind of wag our finger and think like that. But I think if we take a more global perspective of how we were in our 20s, the workforce now, and how everything has changed, I think maybe you can find some more empathy for every generation in the workplace, because that's what we need right now. If we want to flip that around as well, the younger generation in the workforce has to also stop saying, "Okay, boomer."
Yes.
The respect has to be mutual. There has to be mutual respect. So you don't want younger people in the workforce making fun of older people, people older than them. And you can't have someone in their 40s or 50s saying this generation,
mm-hmm. Back in my day.
It's got to go both ways. So empathy is the key there.
Empathy, understanding, curiosity, and just listening.
Yes.
We need to have a generation party.
I'll bring the 80s.
That would be curious. How I would love to see a little 30-minute show clip where they show how each generation would do a certain thing.
That would be fantastic. That would be such an amazing team building activity. Oh my gosh, we should do this.
Let's do it.
That would be so funny. I mean, we've all watched, I think, those talk shows or game shows where you ask a Gen Z to try and use a rotary dial phone or find something on a map. That would be really funny to watch each generation try to complete the same task.
Yeah.
I think it would foster a lot of empathy, actually.
Right. There we go. We've just created.
We just solved all the world's problems.
In 5 minutes.
Excellent.
What more could you ask for? Corina, I would love for you to share whether or not you've had, whether or not you've experienced burnout in your roles, either entrepreneurially or when you were working.
Yes, absolutely, I have. And for a long time, I was even afraid to admit that. Because I remember the first time I kind of mentioned I had burnout to a former colleague, there was kind of a shaming response there where I should have known better because I'm a coach. But yes, I absolutely have had burnout. When I was working for someone else, I probably did have a little bit of burnout, but it was more boredom burnout. I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't, doing something that I was truly passionate about, which could lead to burnout. But as an entrepreneur, what led me to burnout was trying to be and do all things for all clients. And it was before I had created my signature program. So now I deliver the same program to organizations. I don't have to recreate the wheel every time. And I have tremendous amount of purpose in my work because I know the impact that my program has. But before I developed that program, I definitely experienced burnout from doing too much, recreating the wheel for every single client, I had a standing offer with an organization that our values didn't align. So I was doing a lot of work for them, and it was really, really draining me. So my burnout, I think, came from doing work where there wasn't a values alignment, from doing too much one-on-one and training work, which is very taxing anyway, and not properly taking care of myself. But yes, I've absolutely had burnout.
Right. And I don't know if you've heard of Jen Kim and Master Brand. One of the things that she shares is creating a values aligned business so that you can have clean, clean nose and definite hell yeses. Like, what are your values? And right away if they're not aligned, you just don't do it because it's not going to work.
That is so critical. Nothing I think, will burn you out faster than when there's a values misalignment. It causes so much inner conflict, and that inner conflict can absolutely lead to burnout. But yes, I've had clients where there really wasn't a values alignment, and I got through it. But I would, one way or the other, make sure I didn't work with them again, and make space for the clients who share the same values.
Absolutely. I think the first time where I had to turn down a very, very lucrative contract, and, but I knew that it just was not going to work. Just the interaction with the person who said this is not going to work, and just the whole team. It wasn't my cup of tea, and I had to eat that and accept that. But that was the best thing for me, regardless of what. All money is not good money.
That's true. That's true. And there's so much energy attached to money that, if you take in kind of bad money, or money with that bad energy attached to it, that can be really draining on you and your business as well. I'm not going to say it's easy to say no to those contracts. It certainly is not. But that's leadership. That's leadership right there. Making tough decisions and then accepting that and living with that, but also knowing that by turning down that client, you're going to make space for the client you will be aligned with.
Right.
And that is what will light you up.
Absolutely. Because no one wants to be served by someone who feels resentful that they have to be.
Right? Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that's leadership, recognizing that what energy you will bring to the table if this is not a fit.
Yes.
And going back to our original story from a little while ago, if you don't think you're right for this management role, should I step away from it? It's the same thing, right? Recognizing that this is not going to work. I'm not going to be able to properly serve this client or this team, and then having the leadership and the courage to walk away from it.
Beautiful. Do you have some practices that you do consistently to ensure that you don't burn out, other than just, ensuring that it's a right fit now?
Absolutely, I do. I think automation and having your approach. So there's the technical things that I do, like, setting up my business systems and structures properly, the automation and the systems. And then having support, hiring people, whether it's vendors, full-time employees, contractors. So one of the best things I ever did was hire another facilitator to deliver my program, so I don't have to do all the delivery, because delivery is taxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's all those technical things, making sure you have your accountant in place, your lawyer in place, all of those, that support team. And I remember a very sharp business coach asking me a question once, and the question she asked was, what would it look like if you had more than enough support? And I went, what? More than enough support? I don't even have the bare minimum of support yet. Mm-hmm. But I get to have more than enough? Like, she gave me permission to start thinking like that. Like, you don't have to just survive.
Right.
By having like the bare minimum amount of support in your business. You can thrive by having more than enough support. And what would that look like? That's a critical question you need to ask yourself if you're going to stay out of that burnout range. And it's a question you need to ask in your life as well.
I was getting ready to go there. I'm glad you said that.
Right? It's whether it's hiring someone to pick up your child from school and bring them home and stay with them until you're finished work, just so you're not interrupting your state of flow. Hiring the person to clean your house, ordering the meals the meal kits or whatever so you don't have to worry about groceries and things like that. What would more than enough support look like? How might you get that for yourself, your life, and your business?
Yes, absolutely. Because all that creates some harmony in your ability to lead and just enjoy life.
Exactly. I think it creates space for you to think and not always be running around like a house on fire.
It's beautiful. I would love to give you the opportunity to issue a challenge to the audience to either create a healthier workplace culture or a healthier lifestyle.
Absolutely. The challenge that I would issue or throw down for people is, if you are in an organization where you're the person who is doing the promoting, if you're promoting those new leaders to management, how might you get them more than enough support for their role? How might you get them the leadership development that they need to thrive in their role? Because when they thrive, their team will thrive, and that will impact your entire organization. And if you are the new manager who just got promoted, how might you self-advocate and get that leadership development that you need from your organization? How might you ask them to support you in that leadership development that you so desperately need to do well in your role? That would be the challenge. I need organizations to start thinking like that. How can we get these managers more than enough support to thrive in their role?
And it is not weakness to ask for support.
Oh, no. It's leadership to ask for support.
I love that so much. I'd love to hear something that you do that is unrelated to work that brings you joy.
Oh, I finally found a hobby.
Let's hear about it.
Oh my gosh, I have been looking for a hobby, because if you run your own business and if you don't have a hobby, you'll work all day, all night. I tried jewelry making. I tried gardening. I've tried, so many things. I started doing fiber art. So I'm doing macrame. I'm doing learning how to do tapestries and make wall art using yarn and using wool. And it's just like bringing up this creative spark and renewing these creative juices in me that maybe had kind of died off a little bit because I've been in business for 10 years. So find yourself a creative hobby, I think would be a great life advice. And don't give up if you don't find your hobby initially, like I didn't. It's taken me a while. Keep looking for some type of creative outlet that will really fill you up.
Okay, so it's almost like finding a mate or a partner.
Yeah.
The first one isn't going to be a match necessarily.
Exactly. Keep swiping.
Keep swiping. Yes. That is so... Okay. Yeah, that's so generational. I love that you came to the younger generation. I loved having you today, Corina. Thank you so very much for everything that you shared and your expertise. And we'll make sure to put in the comment section how our viewers can get in contact with you.
Thank you so much. I loved our conversation as well. I love your spirit and I love your energy. So thank you for chatting with me.
Welcome. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. You've been watching Leadership Beyond Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Kimberly L. Wilson. You can catch us every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 2 p.m. Pacific. Until then, we'll see you next time.